Hi, I'm Carolyn Connors. I'm a performer, a musician, a singer, an artist, and I'm very happy to be here to talk with you about singing and performing. I started out as a piano player and I loved piano. My parents bought me a piano because I begged them for 2 years to get me one. There wasn't heaps of music in the house, and so I pretty much had this, I lived in a little music bubble of my own where I went through the AMEB system and played piano, but really didn't have many other influences on me. I got into the con as a piano player at Melbourne University. And then in my 20s, I started improvising, and I was playing piano with some other instruments, other instrumentalists, and for fun, I would just, if the saxophone player would say, I'd copy, and we started duetting, and I started singing in a very free way in relation to other instruments. And I discovered that I have a big range, and that interest in music then became attached to my interest in the voice and the body and the sounds that a human body can make. I make my own work, and I also perform in other people's works. It's a very special year for me because in the coming year I'm celebrating 40 years as a professional performer. My very first job was as the piano player for the Lower Templestowe Calisthenics Club. I played piano in theatre shows and became musical director for a number of theatre shows. I practiced a lot, extended techniques, and started to be asked to be in contemporary composers' works who needed someone who would really go strange places and interesting places with the voice. I was in a show that was on Broadway a couple of years ago, and we toured about 20 or 30 different venues around Australia and also across the United States. Last year I was in a show called Siren Song, where about 450 speakers were on top of skyscrapers, on top of buildings in Hobart, and my voice was carried into this space in a helicopter, and the sound was broadcast through the whole city. For many years was the MC at the Melbourne Town Hall for Senior Citizens Week for the City of Melbourne. That was a huge privilege and lots of fun. So I have a really wide range of things that I do. So when I started improvising vocally, I realised that my voice could do all sorts of odd things, and instead of rejecting them as mistakes or things to be avoided, I started embracing them and exploring the potential in each of those sounds. And I do feel, in a way, quite lucky that that exploration happened pre-internet. So it happened mainly in the 80s. And so my pathway and journey of discovery was definitely fueled by my own interest, not by hearing the best and greatest in the world. And I think that's something to actually encourage. If you're interested in something and you have the time to explore it, don't compare yourself to everything that you hear on the internet, because it can actually block you from discovering your own unique sounds. So some of the sounds that I really liked were multiphonic singing, harmonic singing. I loved fry, that sound, and I loved playing around with all those sounds, and we'll be coming across some of those during this session. The vocal work that you usually listen to is probably rock music or pop music or music theatre or opera. And with extended techniques, we're going to take the sounds of those styles and extend them. So use anything that the voice is capable of, is really my definition. Anything that your lips can do, anything that the tongue or the throat or the note can do, I keep in my bag of extended techniques. Contemporary composers might ask for a lot of different extended techniques now, and it's almost accepted that a singer who's singing contemporary work, contemporary classical work, might be asked to do a whole range of things. For example, some of these things. Or they might be asked to swoop the voice. Or they might be asked to whisper. They might be asked to whisper as part of the material. or they might be asked to use vocal fry. Lots of different techniques. And in this session, we're just going to look at a couple of them, and we might listen to a couple of little tracks I've made in the past that might explain some of the things as well. So harmonic singing is singing one note and then adding harmonics. The resonance of your body will create, if you set up the right parameters, will create overtones or harmonics. Ma. And then if I add harmonics to that, Another way of doing it is to keep my lips still and change my tongue a little bit. So moving the back of my tongue forward and back can also make harmonics. And so all of those are resonating in my face and are coming out my mouth. And the harmonics are from the resonance in my head. And I'm going to pinch my nostrils and show you that it's mostly not coming through my nose at first. Another thing you can do is make a very nasal sound, like sort of like the Wicked Witch sound. So you can, so it's almost like you've got air coming out your nose, and then make the sound. So playing with where you're placing the note and where it's resonating in your face can give you different harmonics and different effects. Why would you do this? It's a beautiful effect. It's one of the techniques that a lot of people use now. Even if you're never going to use it in performance, it's a very beautiful thing to do, to sit and do, and it's to hear your own voice, to hear the harmonics that your own body can make. And it's really great long note practice. If you waver off your pitch or the vibrato is very big, you'll lose the harmonics. So it's a lovely technical practice as well. So another extended technique is what I know as multiphonic singing. Sometimes it's called throat singing or Tuvan singing or Tibetan singing or Tibetan chant. There's lots of different names for it. And instead of in our harmonic singing, we added overtones to a given note. This time we're going to add notes underneath the sung note. And it can be an octave or it can be a fourth or fifth below, depending on how you're going. So if I sing my note, ah, and then I'm going to add a note underneath, ah. So it's a bit like yodeling, so I'll do it a bit, bringing that note in and out so that you can hear me adding it and removing it. And you can do that anywhere in your range, or up higher. If I was sitting in the room with you teaching you how to do this, do not try. I've seen people try and explain it by forcing the air through your vocal folds. There's no need to do that. You might want to do that for effect, but there's no need to do it. There's two ways of getting this technique. Choose a note. Keep that in mind and start with vocal fry, that gravelly sound. And then in your mind's eye, add that sung note to the vocal fry, and then you try and get them to get on with each other. I'll give you a couple of demos. So it's by practicing it a few times, you might find that you're sounding like a very sick cat or a cow mooing painfully with its hoof caught in a fence. Don't worry, this is part of the process. And I'm pretty sure some of you will be able to do it straight away. The second way to get to it is to descend vocally and try and find that break that we're always trying to get rid of. You know, that little yodel moment in your voice. And instead of jumping over the yodel moment, try and kind of sit exactly in that kind of dead space that we try to get out of our voices normally. So it's a very relaxed feeling, very relaxed technique. And it might be rough like that a few times. So excitingly now, we can add multiphonics and harmonics together and then play around with those resonances and those different pitches. And then you can have fun with them using the resonances from your nose, your face, your lips, your tongue. These are all extended techniques, and I'll do a little demo using all of those, but just on one note. And the last extended technique I want to speak about is circular singing, and that's singing on the in-breath and the out-breath. So, is the singing on the out-breath, and then and you can see as singers that the throat is never closed and the voice gets very dry very quickly. So this is one of those techniques that you need to look after yourself, and with all of the extended techniques, always have your mind's eye on what's happening in your body and whether you feel okay, and whether you need to take a break, whether you need to have some water, maybe you shouldn't practice it for too long. So circular singing is one of those ones where a bit of care is involved, but it's very fun to try.